We are. So we're going into practice 7 tomorrow. Uh, we've gone through the acclimation period. We're in hats and shells and all that stuff. And so, um, what we told them once we put pads on, we did a lot of install, and so we've got a large percentage of the offense in, a large percentage of the defense in right now, and also, in the third realm with special teams. So that's been positive. I think this is a bright football team, so we've been doing a good job. Very few MAs. We have mistakes to clean up, but probably at a lower rate than I'm used to. So that's a promising curve to be on. The physicality piece is just starting because now we have the pads on. We had a little half scrimmage yesterday. That went very well. Got out of that healthy. Thought we were fairly physical. So these are good signs. I think what we got to do now is we got to get battle ready, and we got to learn how to play the game fast, where we're not thinking so much. And we want to get to a point where all of our starters, all of our rotating guys, anybody that's going to take the field on opening day is playing instinctive football. And you'll hear me say that word a lot. The word instinctive is, it just comes from doing something over and over and over. You don't have to think about it. You're really good at it. And it takes a lot of reps and a lot of work to get to that point. And that's our staff's job, is to get those guys to a point where we're playing fast, we're playing instinctively, and we're not doing a lot of thinking. And once we're there, I think that's the line that you want to get the team to before you take the field on game one.
Y'all are entering, I believe now it's block 2, I guess tomorrow. Just what do you kind of want to see from that? You've talked about the physicality and all of that, but, what do you kind of want to see as you progress through this training camp with, 2 weeks left until game time, 3 weeks till game time?
Well, the other piece to it is communication. There are things the defense and the offense has to do between the whistles to communicate so that we're ready to roll once the ball is snapped. And I think that'll be a huge component here. And then there's the timing piece. You know what I mean? There's some timing with movements on defense. There's timing with throwing the football on offense. Those things. So those are things that we're starting to see. Upgrades. We're starting to see some improvements. We're starting to see some things get better from a timing standpoint. One, because we know our job, and two, because we're starting to get into a point where we're getting enough reps that we can, hopefully by the third aspect of camp, we are polishing things, we're lowering the mileage, and we're getting fresh for opening day. So we're heading into the second phase. That's going to be a very physical part of camp. And probably the most important part of camp.
You talked last week about kind of the cream of rise to the top as we get through this thing, training camp. Has any group or players kind of stood out to you that you kind of noticed kind of rise to the top?
There's a few. I think I did mention when people asked about the quarterback situation, I very rarely over 37 years have had to really declare the starter. I think the starter declares the starter. I think everybody knows from performance, execution, overall production, leadership, all that at that position, who the guy is. But it kind of happens at every position. And then we have some situations, some rooms where we have some depth, and we're going to roll through a number of guys because there are a number of guys in that room. That's a great place to be when you have a number of guys in the room that can play the position. And so we can roll through them, and we can use more than just the guy that's in that starting spot. We can spell each other and stay fresh, and so Quavez Humphreys on offense has really stood out. Without question, I think Cecil Gray on defense has stood out. Those are two that come to mind initially. But there's some iron sharpening iron right now on the team. There's a great battle going on in the quarterback room, great battle going on in the running back room, really good battle going on in the defensive line, positional room. So those are things you want as a head coach. You want it to be difficult trying to figure out who your frontline guys are going to be because of the talent base in the room. And so right now, as much as we can know 7 days in, this is a much different camp than I've ever been a part of before because there are so few returning guys, and that's going to be really the landscape of college football now. So we're still learning who our players are as we're developing the team for the first game.
You know, I've asked everybody else we've talked to today, what's it been like for those few guys that did return to be leaders of this team and, just kind of show the way through, this first portion of camp?
Some people have natural leadership ability, but it really is hard to step outside of the framework of handling your own business, knowing your job, being on point with technique and fundamentals, and playing fast and getting to a point where they're playing instinctively, like I just talked about, before they can go lead other players. So it really comes from one. I think there's an inherent ability for certain people to lead, and it doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. But they can't even do that until they have their world set. So the guys that have been here, there's a much higher comfort level because they know the offense, they know the defense, they know the technique. They've got a lot more of that done. They're much further ahead than, say, somebody that arrived here on campus in June. So I think we're going to see the leadership piece of it evolve as the season goes on, because we've got guys in 3 different levels of learning here. We've got returning players from last year who know their way around Sam Houston. We've got guys that we met and joined forces with in January, and then we have guys that came in June. So there's really 3 different factions, 3 different populations of athletes that are here, and they're all somewhere along that learning curve a little bit differently than the other 2. And so I think the leadership piece is going to be an ever-evolving part of our football team as we move forward.
Just how hard is it to get 33 people acclimated as the head coach, that get here, whatever it is, June 1st or whatever date that is?
Well, this arrival of new faces, new athletes, so late in the semester, which will continue to happen, that won't change, I don't believe. So that takes some coaching. I do believe one of the silver linings to the portal is coaches who can coach for 3 or 4 years and not do a great job coaching because they just kind of lean on the talent in their room. If you're a receiver coach, you got 3 really good athletes. You could probably get away with not doing a great job coaching, and the athletes are still going to be athletes. Nowadays, you can't do that anymore. Nowadays, you better be able to coach. Your room may change. Half that room may be different next year. And what that means is you got to coach them up, and your room has to be productive with new faces every year. And so I think what you're going to see is the guys that are truly coaching, that are putting the time in, they get to know their players, that are great player development coaches, and can attack doing that on a yearly basis. Those are the guys that are going to succeed in the league. Those are the guys that are going to succeed at this level. And I'm very proud of the staff that we put together here. And I think as of right now, I feel terrific about where we are from a player development standpoint. Is it more challenging for the new ones? There's no question. And so that means more one-on-one time. That means a little bit longer meetings. That means a little bit more film. We do whatever we have to do to get them caught up so everybody's on the same page, when the season starts.
And then, we've already talked about what we want to see in phase 2, but specifically from that quarterback room, because it's such a heavy position, just what do you kind of want to see from those 2 guys that are battling it out, through these next, 2 weeks before, I think, that 3rd week deadline that you've been talking about?
Well, I mean, that's our rule book right there. It says character and production, on the banner here. And, at the end of the day, we're truly, this life is simple, right? Mac Brown used to say all the time, football is simple, people are complicated. And I've never heard a truer phrase. And I think that we can make this thing a lot more difficult than it is. And it's not. And we try to keep the game simple so we can get these guys to that instinctive point sooner. And so in the quarterback room or in any room, it really comes down to production. We need them to be good character guys off the field, be good teammates, be good citizens. And then on the field, production doesn't lie. What they put on film is who they are from a football standpoint. And so the guys that are the most productive and are taking care of their business off the field are the guys that are really going to be the cream that rises to the top, and those will be the guys that lead us into the season. And then, during the course of the year, it's our job to try to get as many of the guys in our position room into that category. I'd much rather play 9 offensive linemen than 5. Right? I'd much rather play 3 running backs than 1. We'd like to play 3 to 4 tight ends a game. We'd like to play 8 D linemen, you know, and we'd like to play 6 or 7 defensive backs. We'd like to play 4 linebackers, you know. So the only place I don't want to play multiple people is a quarterback. But if I have 2 really good ones, we're going to play both of them. So it just comes down to what are our strengths, who is meeting the standard, who is good enough to get on the field and help us win, and then it's our job to find a way to use all of those weapons to help us on Saturday.